Hey team, this is video 3 of the How to Stop Binge Eating series. So we've spoken a little bit about centering yourself and sort of bringing back your awareness to the situation at hand. So having self-awareness and also creating that circuit breaker when you find yourself in a bit of a binge. And what is, I guess, the next most important thing is to identify your triggers and what is triggering the binge itself. And there can be a few different things. It's not necessarily just one thing, although for some people it might just be one main thing. What I want to emphasize is that you're not necessarily best off identifying what your triggers are during a binge. Okay, that the triggers are not necessarily going to be most apparent during a binge, because when you find yourself in a binge, what we want to do is get yourself out of the binge. That's not necessarily the best time to identify what started it off in the first place. That's probably going to take a little bit of reflection and a little bit of a step back, a broader perspective following the event. As time goes on, as you create more self-awareness, that might become more apparent. So in a binge you might go, oh, well, I was triggered by this and this is what started it. Certainly initially for a lot of people, you're not going to be best off doing that. You're going to want to reflect. And so there are different triggers for different people, of course. It's important to identify what you're feeling in that moment. So for some people, I use this as an example, not necessarily something that I've experienced, but something I think that would be very easy to trigger a binge. And that could be feeling lonely around Christmas time. Second Singapore Christmas this year, it was definitely better than the first one, easier than the first one. Certainly missing family, and that I think for a lot of people could trigger a binge for sure, especially around birthdays, Christmas, New Year's, and other significant events, obviously depending on the culture that you're from. You may not celebrate Christmas, you might celebrate Hari Raya. That is going to be a potential trigger. Other potential triggers, do you know if you feel deprived, if you feel that you've been avoiding a certain food or food group or food type, and do you know that that could be something that you legitimately need to avoid because you're allergic to it or you have food sensitivities or allergies to it. Perhaps you've decided to cut something out of your diet for weight loss purposes. I would say deprivation is certainly going to be a trigger. So look at anything that you've cut out of your diet and see if that sort of triggers you, because it's almost like telling a child not to do something, they're almost definitely going to do it. So if you deprive yourself of a certain food, it's like, well, it seems even more tempting now because I can't have it, I shouldn't have it, it would be naughty to eat it. I would certainly look into that. We often crave textures as much as we do flavors as well. So a lot of my food, most of the food that I eat, is protein and vegetables. Okay, so it's a source of meat or eggs and steamed veg generally, which is fine because I genuinely love protein and veg. But a lot of that has the same texture. So I do find myself sometimes wanting something a bit crunchier. And although I eat nuts like almonds and cashews, which are a bit crunchy, it's not quite the same as biting into like a cracker. So look at what you're eating and whether you're getting a good variety of textures, and see if perhaps what you're really craving is a textural thing rather than just a flavor thing. Of course, these are just some options, but it really needs to be explored. You need to identify what you were feeling in that moment. Were you lonely? Were you upset? Were you angry? Were you excited? Were you overwhelmed? Did you eat out of a feeling of scarcity? So perhaps you grew up poor and didn't have a lot of food, and so now whenever there's an abundance of food, you're like, fuck yeah, I gotta eat. Don't know what I'm gonna eat again. These are all very plausible things which can trigger a binge. And a little bit tricky for me to, I guess, comment on, because I don't find myself binging because I don't I guess I don't feel deprived is probably a main reason. And I often feel in control of what I'm doing. Um, and I guess those of you who know me well know that I'm not the sort of person who particularly enjoys not being in control. So explore those thoughts, explore those feelings. Perhaps keep a diary after a binge or make a note in your phone. This is what I was feeling when this happened, um, or this is what was going through my head, and see if you can sort of join the dots and put together a few ideas as to why uh, it starts in the first place, what you're triggered by. Because when we understand that, it makes it easy to address. Thanks, guys.